Bart Gets Hit by a Car is 22 minutes long. 18 minutes 45 seconds of it is a story about Bart getting hit by a car. The final 3:15 is a marriage drama that culminates in Homer declaring he's not sure he loves Marge anymore. Boy, that escalated quickly. We've all seen Simpsons episodes twist and turn in unexpected directions, but this strikes me as a difficult pivot to pull off. So, does Bart Gets Hit by a Car manage to get away with this? Or is this ending kind of a mess? First, let's look at those preceding 18-something minutes. Obviously, we shouldn't be hinging the whole episode's quality on its ending. How do we get here? To the episode's credit, it does get to the point quickly. No Act 1 set piece, no preamble, no dialogue, it's just boom. Bart gets hit by a car. They even foreshadow it by providing the episode title for some reason. This is extremely unusual for The Simpsons for multiple reasons, going straight into the inciting incident, but it's a smart decision here. Partially because they will desperately need these time savings, but it opens up Acts 1 and 2 to do this legal plot properly. I absolutely love these heaven and hell sequences. It's one of the big highlights for me. They've definitely had their surreal moments and dream sequences in seasons 1 and early season 2, but this feels like they're kicking things up a notch. I'm not even totally sure if this is supposed to be a fantasy. They don't do the fantasy dissolve, it's matter-of-factly showing Bart going up the escalator to heaven and then falling to hell. Either way, I love the presentation. How Bart spits off the side and damns himself, the Devil's oddly down-to-earth and easygoing demeanor, with his hermit-esque voice. Hey, wait a minute, is the Devil a Mac user? It's always funny hearing that joke about the Yankees winning the pennant, given what happened in the late 90s and early 2000s. Guess The Simpsons didn't predict that one. It's such a Season 2 presentation of hell, you know? Like, compare it to that later Treehouse of Horror during the Merkin years, where the designs are wilder and they bounce around to torture jokes. Whereas here, things are still more character-driven. We'd rather spend the time bantering and convincing Bart to not bother changing his ways. I think the Devil's presentation works in how it leads into the introduction of Lionel Huts, with that sleazy smile of his. Not that Huts is the Devil, we stan our pantsless king. But the episode is really hitting us with those smooth-talking hucksters, preparing us for the journey ahead. Now, Lionel Huts is definitely a work in progress right here. He didn't come out of the box exactly like the Huts we all know and love, but it's pretty damn close. Right from the get-go, they play up what an opportunistic charlatan he is, that ambulance-chasing lawyer preying upon personal tragedy. It's definitely a more proactive and aggressive Huts than we might be used to. In later appearances, Homer and Marge will pursue him with an existing problem, but here, he's like a force of nature that's thrust upon them. Almost Lyle Landley-esque, selling them something they didn't want, and calming their con man fears. Wow, Lisa became so much easier to fool by season 4. There's definitely more of an edge to this early Lionel Huts. In particular, when he blows up at Bart during rehearsal for not immediately having the right answers. We definitely see those cracks in his facade later on, but generally, in front of his clients, he's much more careful about keeping up appearances. From a design perspective, this Lionel Huts is a little more lizard-like, with some of those curvy mouth shapes and his general demeanor. Notice how they play up the cheekbones here, giving him a more inauthentic smile. There's a real duplicitous air about him here, whereas later appearances tend to play him more as a smooth-talking incompetent. In addition to Huts, this features the introduction of Dr. Nick Riviera, another beloved Simpsons regular. However, unlike Huts, Nick feels closer to his final form. Sure, he's not doing commercials yet, and they haven't ratcheted up the wacky, but mannerisms-wise, they nailed this quack on their first try. I love how they show off his bogus certifications, how he BS's his way through the x-rays, and how Huts prompts him to add more and more bandages. Honestly, I find myself wanting more from Dr. Nick after this scene. It's somewhat surprising they left him as a one-scene wonder in this one. If the episode were produced a couple years later, we might see him testifying during the trial, or prepping Bart with even more bandages. Actually, during the trial, they mentioned Dr. Nick's testimony, so it's surprising we didn't get to see it. We need more Dr. Nick. Bart Gets Hit by a Car has much more deliberate and steady pacing, compared to their later legal affairs. In Marge and Chains, for example, they'll do an Act 1 opening subplot, merge into the Marge arrest storyline, and then hit that trial stuff hard in Act 2. Whereas here, they make sure to go through every preliminary step in the legal process. Instead of Huts immediately convincing Homer to sue, they have Mr. Burns offer him a paltry settlement up front. In later seasons, they might have skipped this step, let Homer fall under Huts' spell, and hammer home commentary about frivolous lawsuits. But I like Season 2's more careful approach to his characterization. Yeah, Mr. Burns is about to get extorted for $1 million, but it's clear he brought a lot of this grief upon himself through both his carelessness and stinginess. Just pay the medical bills, you pathetic miser. And more importantly, it sets up Homer for a mini corruption arc. That he starts out as our hero, a good actor who wants Mr. Burns to do right by him, but is driven into the arms of these shady Huts who dazzles him with big payout dreams. Okay, I guess Homer isn't necessarily heroic. He's extremely quick to want that $1 million. But the point is, they present Homer as being at least somewhat reasonable, a good baseline for his character journey. This isn't the Rosebud Homer, eager to stick it to Burns. Speaking of Mr. Burns, he kicks so much ass in this episode. Forget the devil, I think Mr. Burns is my favorite part of this thing. God, Season 2 is such a great Burns year. I like how aggressively confident he is during this whole ordeal, his total lack of self-awareness. Smithers worries about his image if he fires Homer. Burns, not so worried. During the trial, Burns' extremely unconvincing version of events, how he unnecessarily characterizes Smithers as an uncaring bastard. They play the awkwardness of this reaction so perfectly, just everyone staring at him with contempt. I think it's that extra level of delusion that makes Burns so great here. It's very Homer at the bat. How he's so convinced himself that he should be able to do whatever he wants, and is so confident he will shout at the judge and jury when given any pushback. Then culminating with his muted shouting at his lawyers, making them hang their heads in shame. Confident and delusional are the keys to a perfect Mr. Burns spotlight, and this episode nails it. One of my favorite understated jokes is when Homer slyly asks if he's trying to get him drunk, and Burns simply says, yes, and that's it. No flowery language, no old-timey euphemism, just yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. I will say I always found it strange how Burns draws that little smiley face on his offer. I guess he's trying to lay on the charm extra thick. Marge, and by extension Lisa, has a largely thankless role throughout most of it. Since Homer takes the lead with all the lawyer stuff, they fall back into their typical roles of commenting on and criticizing their behavior. I really like Lisa straight up asking Huts if he's a shyster, showing off her keen instincts. However, by the time we get to this scene, their presence feels more like they're just explaining to the audience what's happening. I think it's pretty obvious by now what Huts is doing, and Marge's questions come off as naive, even by her standards. I think the idea was to not allow Marge to immediately call them out, because they're building up to her moment on the stand later. They're highlighting Marge's sense of honesty, so we can pay it off with the blue-haired lawyer preying upon it during the trial. I think that angle of her characterization works. It's just her passivity that is off-putting to me. Even when fed up during the Burns settlement scene, she's more ruminating on the situation than actually taking a stand. She's played more like Homer's subordinate, like Smithers whining to Mr. Burns. Contrast this with the episode where Burns runs for governor. Marge feels much more like a character on equal footing. I think that's one of the reasons why this ending just doesn't land for me. Hot take time. These last 3 minutes might be the worst part of Season 2. Yes, even worse than that fish. It is that unconvincing. Now part of this is just due to the timing, that it's hard to pivot and pull off the emotional stakes of this moment with only 3.5 minutes to work with. I think this pivot is possible, since logically Homer would feel resentment about losing that $1 million. I get their instinct to pivot the story in this direction. And I do appreciate their ambition, that they wanted to add emotional stakes to this otherwise fluffy adventure. That's one of the things that makes classic Simpsons great. But the way the story is constructed, I don't think they earn this moment, and especially this resolution. Unlike that Burns Runs for Governor episode, they don't establish any Homer and Marge relationship commentary and how it relates to the main conflict. That episode has them arguing about politics in the kitchen and then at bedtime. In fact, a lot of Simpsons episodes insert a Homer and Marge bedroom discussion scene to help center them. They do this constantly. It's like the series cheat code. This episode doesn't have, like, Homer dreaming of the $1,000,000 or discussing his plans with her. Marge doesn't get the agency to fully plant into Homer that they'll be just fine without the money. There's no foundation built for their conflict, just general plot whining from Marge. In the DVD commentary, Mike Reiss talks about the ending, how Homer's line was changed to saying that he loves Marge more than ever. And John Swartzwelder, the episode's writer, asked, why does he love her more than ever? Why? And yeah, good point. It's entirely banking on our inherent understanding of close relationships and these specific characters. That, at the end of the day, Homer loves Marge. That's what we've always known about Homer. And yeah, that's fine, that's valid. But Homer snapping back, realizing he loves her more than ever, just feels like a platitude. Like they're overcompensating their resolution to get this conflict to work. The other thing the commentary notes is that they went to James L. Brooks to punch up this ending because it wasn't landing. And that's where all the Homer inner monologue came in. They inserted these pauses so Homer could lay out how he was feeling. I think this technique was probably the right call, given the situation they were in. This ending would be even more unconvincing without it. But it does put into focus how sharply the story has suddenly pivoted. We have Homer pouting and wondering, maybe this is the last time I'll ever be here. Okay guys, maybe we're being a little dramatic. Overall, I think they just bit off more than they could chew. The plot couldn't carry this much weight, at least the way it was constructed. There are plenty of episodes where Homer is upset by the results, and Marge helps him find a silver lining. Less is sometimes more. Hell, even by the end of the year, they're doing the meta, maybe this is a bunch of stuff that happened ending. I love that Bart Gets Hit by a Car was produced in season 2, that we get that slower, more procedural look at a court case. It sets up their faster, wackier affairs like Marge in Chains and The Day the Violence Died. But those season 2 instincts to add this much relationship drama led them astray. Like I said at the beginning, I don't think this totally ruins Bart Gets Hit by a Car. I still love the first 18 minutes and think it's really innovative in a lot of ways. I mean, it's the debut of Lionel Huts, Dr. Nick, and the blue-haired lawyer. Clearly, this episode was a success by that metric alone. So while Bart Gets Hit by a Car may be flawed and isn't one of my favorite season 2 episodes, I definitely respect it. Maybe just dial it back a little.